very fortunate and successful turning Gitcoin donations into meaningful regenerative impact on the ground. So we've been working with Sylviap, doing our tree DMRV. And so we've been getting a lot of insight into both the Ethereum ecosystem as well as the Cosmos ecosystem. So, as we know, the L2 growth has been explosive, and that's where the users are. That's where a lot of the impact is happening. And for these Gitcoin grants, a lot of the verification is going through an organization called Karma Gap. So with all of the meme coin and AI agent activity, the question is, we have all this fragmented growth. How do we bring it together through a standardized bridging protocol and make it more interoperable? So this is where the idea for a REVM came up, and I'm sure some of you are familiar with Evmos. But the idea is simple. You have a ReFi dApp that has deployed on an L2, Arbitrum or Celo, and that app can be deployed on Evmos. And so the reason why we would want to do that is that you can have EVM ReFi dApps doing original creation of eco credits on the Regen network. And so we're seeing a lot of bridges being built that takes Regen eco credits outside of the ecosystem. How do we bring that to the other side? And so this is just an idea, but it wouldn't be R&D, it wouldn't be Regen Foundation, it would be a third thing that would be community-led. And so this is just putting the call out there to bring EVM ReFi dApps onto the Regen network using this Evmos module. And this is kind of like the easiest thing to get off the ground. So the next steps for anybody who's interested, setting up a stewards council, understanding the technical implementation for what an Evmos module would look like, and then thinking about rewards in Regen. And this is the topic of how do we drive more demand for the Regen token, getting more of these ReFi dApps minting and managing their eco credits. And so we have a lot of experience. I mean, Gmo's on the call, and Sylviap is doing a lot of work with DMRV. And now we have, hypercerts, ecocerts, the ecological benefits framework. So there's all these data standards floating around. And maybe this is an opportunity to like ground that and to get more standardization, or at least a shelling point, if you will, for eco credit creation. So we put together an executive summary. The link is here. You can scan the QR code, and we also have a Signal group for anybody who wants to join, continue this conversation. So this is just an idea, a seed of an idea, and I mean it's the L2 growth and just the Ethereum growth is really important, and how do we bring that onto the Regen network chain? So yeah, just kind of how do we get into right in the middle of the meme space. So I don't know if there's any other questions, or I'm happy to like take the conversation online as well. And that's all I have.
Great, thank you, Regen Avocado. Appreciate you are participating. We're going to go ahead and pivot over to Corey Levinson, who's a former team member of Regen Network Development and key community member. Corey, thank you for your patience. I know we were running a little late, but the floor is yours.
Hello, can folks hear me okay?
Hi. Yeah, I see you great.
All right, cool. I'm going to screen share. I think this will be pretty quick. So thanks to Gregory for the invite to come and talk about a project that I started in my last couple months while I was internally still at Regen, called the Regen Network Dataset Explorer. want to see if I can, actually, I don't think I need to go into presentation mode. So an overview of what this project is: it provides an independent data explorer and community resource for two primary things. One is easy access and browsing to all ecological data sets that are anchored on Regen Network, along with their attestations, or kind of trust signals, the digital signatures attached to these data sets that are signed by Regen addresses, showcasing Regen Network as this data attestation network, which is, I think, an important part and vision for what Regen Network always originally would evolve to being. But as much of the energy today in the products are focused around credits and credit creation, there today aren't as many web applications that really display and sort of foreground this more kind of like horizontal data platform and trust signals pointing to different data sets. And the second thing that this data explorer intends to do is to have easy access and browsing for all on-chain entities, so credit classes, credit batches, and projects in an unopinionated and neutral way, with automatic resolving of any on-chain metadata, regardless of how it renders on the Regen marketplace, and also easy navigating between related on-chain entities, so credit classes, projects, and batches. This is an overview of what it looks like, and I can switch to a live demo of it as well. So we can take a quick look here. This is a version that's rendered on Netlify. We can type in a credit class, so C02. That will then load the credit class metadata. So you can see in this upper section, we're seeing the actual on-chain kind of parameters associated with this credit class C02. So we have the credit type, the credit admin, the credit issuers, and for both the admin and issuers, there are hyperlinks that will take you out to that address on Regen Marketplace. Sorry, my internet's a little bit slow. So here is this address on Regen Marketplace, and then we can also see the address on MintScan. Cool. Thirdly, we're seeing the metadata here, which is an explicit kind of parameter or parameter value that's associated with this credit class, as well as the resolved metadata. So separate from associated with this credit class, we have this exact IRI. This app is also then querying Regen Network to find out any information about this IRI and the actual data set associated with it. And then below, we have the resolved metadata. So in addition to having a kind of explorer page for each entity, such as a credit class, you can also have a detailed view of an actual IRI itself. So this is an arbitrary data set where you can see the JSON payload of what that data set actually is in full. You can see the anchor timestamp when it was anchored on Regen Network. You can see the registered resolvers, so where are the different URLs that are hosting this data set. Here we can see that it's registered on the Regen Network's own the R&D managed dataset resolver, and there's a link to click out, and you can view that exact same JSON payload here as hosted by the R&D data resolver. And then you can also see that it explicitly says that this data set is used in the credit class C02, which is what we were just looking at before. So we can do this for credit classes. We can do this also for projects. So let me type in KSH, or actually I'll do BT01001, which is the Terrasos project. So here's that address for the admin, the credit class. And I believe that I did this in a way where I wasn't having to do any special whitelisting of certain credit types. The C-Trees folks on the call, could someone just say what the name of that credit class is?
The biodiversity block.
And do you know what the credit type ID is?
Credit type ID? I don't.
Yeah, like it would be a few digits followed by a number. or a few letters followed by a number, probably.
Yeah. I remember this. Let me get it for you.
Was it MB? No, like marine biodiversity. Maybe I can just search it here.
Corey, while you're doing that, who's the target audience and how are they leveraging, potentially leveraging this and kind of evolution of it?
Who is the target audience?
Yeah, like who
I'd
would
say
be
that this
used? Go ahead.
I think that this is probably something that's geared towards ecosystem developers who are wanting to have a quick way to explore on-chain data. Also, potential like projects or new startups that are wanting to build on Regen as data infrastructure and want an easy way to sort of have a UI that's clear. It's kind of like, who is Etherscan built for, right? Is it built for traders? Not really. Is it a critical tool for anyone who's building on Ethereum? Yeah, 100%. So I think that this is trying to sort of serve that use case where, like, for a technical audience or for new projects or businesses that are trying to engage with the network and want to have an easy way both for their internal uses as well as for, you know, their end customers to be able to sort of point to a third party public service that kind of like shows the paper trail in a generic and unopinionated way. This could be a tool for that too. Okay, here's the credit types list. I think that we can. KSH, MBS. Okay, let's try that.
That's right. Yeah.
Great, MBS. So now we can see here's the admin for the marine biodiversity credit managed by C-Trees. We can see the metadata for it is showing up right here. And so all of the stuff that C-Trees was presenting about earlier, you can kind of see separate from their own hosted version that, you know, they've got on a website that they're managing, separate from any integration with Regen Marketplace. You know, here is a sort of third-party kind of generic application that can display the on-chain data associated with that project. Yeah, so that's a little walkthrough of what this app does. And I'll kind of leave you with sort of where this stands now and kind of what the next sort of iterations of this project might be. First is just getting this deployed and live. So solidifying any branding or kind of what the domain name is for this is something that I still have to do, as well as creating the actual entity pages for credit batches and for credit types themselves. Near-term features include on the homepage, adding some basic network statistics and a kind of list view of all of the different total on-chain entities, something that says, oh, there's 30 credit classes, there's been 50 projects registered, as well as ways to browse directly from a top level, each of those things. And also visual map components, rendering project locations is something that I think I've thought about and have talked about with a few people. And lastly, associated entities. So when you're on, let's say, a credit class page, having a sort of section at the bottom that lists out explicitly all of the different projects registered under that credit class, or when you're on a project page, being able to clearly see all of the different batches under that project. And kind of phase two, I see this as this project as potentially being able to expand to have a broader indexer functionality, so you can search by specific RDF dataset terms. So, you know, as it's kind of registering and allowing for folks to be able to explore generic ecological data sets, you can imagine being able to search for specific RDF data set elements via Sparkle query or something similar. And also adding arbitrary data set anchoring and signing functionality so that there's like a write path through this kind of product as well. And lastly, dataset pinning and resolver registration so that there's a pathway for actually hosting datasets or having datasets hosted through either this service or other third-party services. But this could be kind of like an index into that. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Corey. Appreciate you being here.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. All right. I think we're going to move back internal. Giancarlo, are you ready to share?
Yeah.
do you have a presentation or are you just going to
No,
communicate? Yeah.
From here?
Great, perfect. So Giancarlo Barrios, longtime member and friend of the network, and who's our point person, our being the networks for the community-led software upgrade, please.
Yeah, so just to share with everybody here, like we've been talking about Regen being a Cosmos product or like a Cosmos chain. So right now, there was a need to upgrade Regen on the version that it is today. So with the community, just like pure community members, we managed to do like an upgrade. Right now, we are actively testing it. And what we are doing right now is to upgrade Regen to version 4.7. And also, for anybody who is interested, we are also adding CosmWasm contracts, especially for things like EcoToken to be built. So like right now, we're very excited about people actively using Regen, not just as not just like the products Regen made that are very final, like the marketplace, but the infrastructure Regen build it, everybody has access to it. So if anybody wants to build a new business model, build their own company on top, what we are trying to is to set the infrastructure in a way that you all can build on top of Regen and not just use Regen, but being active builders. I'm also really excited about like EVM contracts. So like maybe at some point it's worth to talk with Regen Avocado. Because at the end of the day, like the more we build around it, we will have network effects, and we can kind of rely on each other's infrastructure. So right now, to give the full update, we're in active testing. There's like, if anybody wants to participate, you can like reach out. There's right now a DevNet running where people will actively test where Regen is today. And hopefully in less than a month, we will be launching Regen 4.7 with smart contracts, CosmWasm smart contracts already ready to be used. So yeah, anything, if anybody wants to like connect later or need help on anything that you guys want to build on top of Regen, like I'm very willing to help.
Wonderful. Thank you for your work too. It's really been I know it's been a little bit of a long haul, but y'all been doing wonderful work. So thank you. Our last presentation of the day, before we move into discussion, is Austin Wade Smith, Executive Director of Regen Foundation, a key actor in the ecosystem on a number of levels, from stewarding in a lot of ways the security and distribution of Regen token to helping facilitate engagement with other project developers and just projects around the world. So let me get you set up here. Yeah. Share. Let me move into. Cool. Nice.
I'm gonna just hit refresh. Hi everyone. So last presentation of the day. Thanks for sticking with it. There's been a lot of information shared and communicated, and a lot of reasons to be excited. This will hopefully sort of land some of the specifics about the integrations that have been shared, and also kind of give like a high level picture. So maybe I'll kind of set the stage for how Gregory will land it later on at the end of the day. If you know anything about Regen Network more broadly, you know that we're like continuously revisiting how we describe ourselves and how we communicate the larger project. So this was one that we were developing earlier this year. It says grounding institutions and markets in right relation with place. When we talk about Regen Network, there isn't one legal entity called Regen Network. It's an umbrella term for Regen Network Development Public Benefit Corp, as well as Regen Foundation, as well as many different project developers in different parts of the world who are building on Regen, creating eco credits, participating in the validation process, etc. And so over time, we've kind of developed this working model around eco credits and what we're calling ecological institutions as two necessary ingredients to define this type of regenerative transition that Regen Network is angling on. And so we've talked a lot about eco credits, and we've seen a number of different flavors. That's kind of a generic term for, say, what C-Trees is sharing. and Terrasos and a number of other sort of ecosystem partners who are building on Regen. And one of the central focuses of the Regen Foundation is to support the creation of the institutions, the social and organizational bodies, which are producing, governing, and maintaining these kinds of credits. So we need a new kind of institution to catalyze this regenerative transition. And maybe we could say that one of the shortcomings of the existing climate financial movement is that they tried to create a new system of value, but they used the same institutional bodies with the same logic to do it. And that's part of its failure. Okay, there's sort of different scales at which these systems interact. We can talk about the bioregional movement and bioregionalism, which I'll say a bit about in a bit, which is beginning to describe sort of larger segmentations of the earth following its own features. And here, human beings with our corporations and things like that, we create these kinds of organizations. And so that are assemblages of people and capital and resourcing in various forms. So part of the core mandate of the Regen Foundation has been to build like organizations that are bioregionally anchored, that are fundamentally driving and maintaining Regen Network at a core level. And so using eco-credits and ecological institutions, this is like maybe a fifth of the different network, but we're actively creating an international network of bioregional hubs, which are developing eco-credits, developing on Regen, and also maintaining the ledger from the perspective of validators, which are effectively like ledger security, distributed network security. So that has been our role, and that's like really exciting and also really quite challenging. Here's a number of like sort of active hubs for where this has been developed. We've been working on this for a long time, so bioregional financing facilities is a really close friend, and it's like basically a contiguous kind of project. I'll say a bit more about that in a second. But we haven't talked a whole lot about the Regen token model, and I feel like it's extremely important to understand this, because I feel like Regen Network has a lot of really original value propositions, and I think that its token distribution model is one of the most sophisticated and like under the hood actually embodying the ethics and values of regeneration at a core level. So these stand for millions. This is token quantity. This is the distribution of tokens at the initial mainnet launch. And this yellow one in the middle here is a little bit more than a third of the entire token holding. The entire token reservoir is dedicated towards a dispersal system to be given to land stewards, regenerative organizations, citizen science initiatives, and indigenous nations, so that they have like founders level stake in the protocol. There is no project currently in the climate finance space or in the Web3 space that has actually like embedded the idea that it's owned and maintained by regenerators like on the level we have. And part of that comes from this logic that's I think quite clearly communicated in this idea that the house always wins. Whoever owns the infrastructure that defines and articulates that system of value will ultimately be reaping benefits from it. And so we make the earth, the house, or its stewards, a sort of core stakeholders in Regen Network. And that's been the responsibility of Regen Foundation to disperse under a sort of prioritization and grants program that we've been doing for several years now. So we call that the community staking DAO. There's 65% up top that was for sale and non-sale liquidity, and that 35% is dedicated to supporting regenerative communities to get up off the ground and to begin to develop eco-credits and participate in the overall ecosystem. And so this is what governance for different decisions around making eco-credits at Regen looks like. These are not generic photos. These are all actual photos from partners internationally that are discussing engagement and how they're participating in developing eco-credits on Regen Network. So this is not hypothetical, it's completely real, and there's a ton of friction and like social humans in the system. So it's easy to talk about the sort of protocol token nature of it, but in the reality at a bioregional level, it's people gathering together to form consensus. And we call these DAOs because a number of their actions can be anchored on chain. So one of the value propositions at its root around Regen's approach is to create a more holistic definition of ecosystem health than what the traditional carbon credit market has defined. So we understand that carbon tunnel vision is a a really narrow sort of parameter to describe ecosystem health. And so an eco credit encapsulates a much wider number of dimensions around that, but not all of them are necessarily like entirely like biological or ecological in nature, in their nature. So like economic development, equity and its access, living wages for people doing the work. I can include that like what creates an attestation around human environmental impact is certainly what we would consider to be more conventional hard science, like DNA sampling, remote sensing, use of machine learning and AI models and things like that. But if we're talking about credits which are ultimately in service to regeneration movements, that means that it must have those communities participating in the process. And I would suggest that a significant shortcoming to the traditional climate financial sector is that the communities on the ground, it's been done over their head. They're considered a friction within the system. And I will propose that if this climate financial or living financial capital that we're talking about, if it doesn't put wind in the sails of grassroots organizations doing the work already, it's not actually helping. A huge amount of profit can be made, but if it's not wind in the sails at the local level, then there's then it's fundamentally not in service to the scale of change that we're after. And so in addition to these harder scientific MRV elements, there's community participation, verification processes. How do we anchor traditional ecological knowledge? And in the process of creating a token distribution model for the foundation, we found ourselves basically experimenting with grassroots governance with local communities. Like, how are they owning the system? How are they participating in designing and defining credits? How are they validating that data? So there's a huge amount of research that can go on in this. Some examples of how that shows up are public comment periods for a credit protocol. So this is on an application called Hilo, where a number of our community members are based. So when a new methodology, in this case, a keystone species methodology developed by ERA Brazil, comes online, the community weighs in to assess the integrity of it. It's a participatory process to collectively improve and refine the rigor of a methodology. So public commenting is a sort of less technical example where token holders are participating in defining what is evolving and what's being added to Regen. Another kind of interesting dimension that is more relevant now than ever is the interaction of the sort of bioregionalist movement with Regen Network. Regen is one of the most prominent case studies in the recent book on bioregional financing facilities, and we basically authored out this section, the 6th section of the BioFi book that looks at eco-credits, DAOs, and ecological institutions. And so we're actively supporting the development of 2 new eco-credits. Regen Network broadly is Regen Foundation and R&D PBC more specifically around keystone species credits around salmon and again for jaguar credits in the Amazon headwaters region. So what started out as this idea of like network security, of distributing ownership of the overall protocol to grassroots regenerative organizations, has bloomed into this area of research where communities are actively doing governance around land stewardship practices. So it's not just governing the protocol level, but governing at the project level. And we've been really interested in developing some systems using the smart contracts that CosmWasm is making possible to do tests where communities are doing governance. In this case, it's around waste collection cooperatives in Tanzania. These are groups who are doing regeneration that are anchoring their decision-making processes on chain. It's a participatory budgeting process. And so this is like the slow and humble work that moves at the speed of trust that is around building capacity for communities to actually own and govern Regen. And I'll conclude with, we like are kind of a front door for interaction with some of the more speculative or open-ended parts of the ecosystem. And we partner a lot with the Earth Law community to develop this idea of ecological institutions that takes the idea of legal personhood that's been developed in the rights of nature movement and weds the sort of regenerative economic paradigm that Regen's been building for a long time to come up with ideas that maybe like ecosystems themselves have digital addresses that allow them to own their own currency, hold contract, be vessels for governance processes. So in the question of like, how do we how do we get people to intuitively understand the value proposition and the importance of the work that Regen does? I think centering the agency and the kind of like the right relation between people and the environment is very important. It's not all just technical. It's about actually having ecosystems and non-humans participate in the process. So we've been working on that, and there's a number of pilots that are getting off the ground related to that. I guess I'll just leave it there and say, if you have any other questions, you're welcome to reach out to me. And there's our link tree if you want to see more information.
Great, thank you, Austin.
Thanks so much.
Gregory, you want to close out our presentations and kind of tie up the thematic, and then we'll open up the floor.
Yeah, well, I'll keep it super brief because it's been a lot of talking at. So I just want to sort of like scattershot a few things. So Jared, when was Dogecoin launched?
Oh God, pretty early. I don't know.
It was like 2016?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it was pretty early.
So think about this, 2016, 2015, somewhere in there, we had a pure and unadulterated expression of mimetic social construction of value. A couple days ago, Trump and Melania both launched meme coins. So we have a sitting president who is harvesting financial capital from pure, unadulterated social construction of value. The current market cap of crypto is 3.5 trillion, roughly. Bitcoin is trading in a band somewhere between 90,000 and 110,000 on any given Sunday. All of this has exploded the Overton window of what money is, what value is, and how to create it and how to use it. We live in this like completely different world than existed a decade ago. All of those facts, though, are completely untethered from the essential, the closest thing to objective truth or reality that humans will ever experience, which is that we all rely on the health of planet Earth to breathe, to eat, to live. All of us rely on the health of planet Earth and her ecosystems and watersheds, forests, oceans. So there's this magical moment, I would argue. We did a long overview from sort of the beginning to end of the technical market, product, users, institutional models, legal theory and it's not even everything, but I think a pretty good circle of the things that are happening in Regen Network. I think Giancarlo hasn't gone to, oh, he did, okay, great. There's just so much, there's a million things happening right now, right? That's the nuts and bolts of this shared enterprise that we're all on together, one way or another, in trying to link this social construction of value to ecological reality. What does the world look like when we can have capital formation processes in which the trillions of dollars that are needed are being efficiently and effectively and seamlessly cycled directly into land stewardship and conservation, coral reef restoration, indigenous land stewardship, and all of the science and technology and work that needs to support all of that. That's the conversation. We have the intuition, we have the belief that Regen is a central capital formation coordination tool for that process. Again, we've done this sort of overview of the technical, social, governance, technological realities that, you know, that exist, that are moving. And the rest of the conversation, which For our friends who are zooming in, we're actually going to shut the Zoom off, and we'll try to give you all some sort of summary or something. But the next stage here is to sort of shift into Chatham House rules, conversation, some breakouts, to just talk, to ask hard questions, to answer them, and to start thinking about, we have this puzzle together. It is our belief that moving forward in this exploration around how Regen can become sort of the Schelling point for the regenerative finance movement, that needs to be a community activity, right? And so, for instance, the role of R&D, the Public Benefit Corp, or the role of Regen Foundation is to provide context, to answer questions, to be enablers, to convene energy. But the role of the community that's been gathered around all of this is going to be to identify what the next actions are and to start taking those actions together. And so that's what we're here to do together. For those of you who are zooming in, I mean, I guess this is a question. We had been intending to sort of like at this stage, cut the Zoom link and just be present. My instinct is that I want to kind of keep that culture. But also my pledge to everybody who's taken the time and been zooming in is that we'll do another meeting like this within a quarter or so. And we'll do it in another geographic space that makes it easier for people who are zooming in who couldn't make this meeting to attend. And we'll do a similar thing where we have a good overview that is publicly available of community members sharing their stories and their progress and the tools and their desires for what's happening. And then we'll sort of bring it back together and we'll create a space where people can sort of speak freely and engage and co-create in person, just since it's kind of hard to cross the digital divide and include all the voices. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Burke and Corey and Dimo and James and Orion and Antonio for sticking with us this whole time, and everybody who was on before. Thanks, James.
Thanks, everybody.
And we'll be feeding back, and I see Becca's still on. Hey, Becca. We'll be feeding back again. We'll try to create a high-level summary that will probably live in the Regen Token Economics Working Group about just any high-level observations for the community. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.